That was Bernie Sanders in Evansville, Indiana this morning, railing against the Democratic Party's nomination process. Joining us now to talk about this race and that process, DNC Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Mr. Chairwoman, nice to see you.
Thank you.
Why is Bernie Sanders wrong?
I mean, Bernie Sanders is wrong because we have had these rules in place since 1984, and we have two types of delegates. We have the delegates that are pledged, that are elected by voters, or that represent voters based on the outcome, and then we have party leaders and other elected officials who have been in the trenches for a long time, who have a role, appropriately so, in choosing our party's nominee. And it's important to note that the unpledged delegates or super delegates have never played a role in actually selecting our party's nominee.
Can you just explain why he's wrong? I mean, I understand that the system. I understand the history of the system and why that the system exists and that he should be played by those rules. But
what do you mean wrong?
Well, his critique of the system is that it's stacked so that establishment politicians benefit and that so insurgent candidates are disadvantaged. Is that wrong on the substance?
Of course, because it's never occurred that our party's nominee has been selected by superdelegates. I mean, we have had a nominee.
So why do you have them? I mean, and we'll take them if you decide to get rid of them. I mean, we could use them.
I bet you could use them right about
But
now.
why do you have them? Because it seems like you give him an excuse for staying in. He's clearly doing her harm. I've watched your interviews the whole cycle, and I thought, she has such a better job than poor Ryan's. You know, we have all this chaos. They have this. But now he is doing her harm. Trump's picking up these lines of attack. He's telegraphing them to a much larger audience. Why don't you guys, why can't you control his desire to stay in past the point where it's
This election is going to be decided by voters who are going to vote because they care about who is the one that will ultimately have their back, help them reach the middle class. The general election will be decided that way. I'm not going to handicap how the primary plays out, but it is appropriate, and our Democratic National Committee members have decided it's appropriate for us to have elected officials and party leaders have a role at our convention, and the pledged delegates who are selected by voters. I mean, they are both important, and this is also important to note, which I've said repeatedly throughout this election cycle. If you didn't, it was decided a long time ago in part to have superdelegates because otherwise you would have, at the district level, when you have activists and other people who want to go to the convention and become a delegate, you'd end up, if the only way to become a delegate is for everyone to run at the district level, then how is an activist going to compete against an elected official who's much better known, much better organized?
But in this scenario, but can you just play a little fantasy game with me? I'm an establishment Republican. These are grim days. If she loses, say, by just a smidge to Trump, is it fair to look back and say if Sanders hadn't done damage to her by questioning her ethics, questioning her honesty, and questioning her qualifications all spring, it might have turned out different?
No, because Hillary Clinton has earned 10 million votes. She has more than 1 million votes more than Donald Trump. Coming out of the last 5 or 7 of our primaries, our voters have consistently said they're enthusiastic about supporting either one of our candidates. 58% of the Pennsylvania Republicans coming out said they thought their party had actually been harmed by their process.
Trump wins, no fault to Bernie.
I don't think Donald Trump is going to win.
It's a fantasy game.
Right. Well, that's a nightmare, not a fantasy.
Well,
so I don't want to go there. And I think voters are going to make a decision based on who they think are going to move us forward and build on the progress that we've made.
Let me ask you about 2 other critiques of Sanders of the Democratic nominating process. The first is about same-day registration. Is there an argument?
By the way, can I also just point out that there is some irony in him criticizing a process that now he says he wants to use to become the party's nominee.
There is.
Hey.
Just saying.
Yes. The irony alert. Is there anything?